Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nusalli wa nusallim ala rasul al-kareem. Chapter 27. Again, a very common question. Why do I have to follow a madhab? Why can't I just follow Qur'an and sunnah? Well, the simple answer is, when you follow a madhab, you're following Qur'an and sunnah. Okay? People who have established these madhabs, these great ulama. We're not talking about people who've done a management course in Asda, right? We're talking about people who are hafiz and qaris, and they got an enormous memory capacity. They became huffaz at the age of 5 or 6, and they're top students. They've learned from top teachers, and they've taught all their lives, and they know. And I'm not joking here. They know 100,000 ahadith by heart, or 500,000 by heart, with the isnad. This is the caliber, because there was no such thing as phones or laptops or computers. It was here. This was your laptop and computer and your phone. So if someone says a hadith, if you don't remember it, if you don't learn it there and then, you're never going to have it. So literally they walked away from a class knowing everything. This is the caliber of the people we're talking about. So when you say, I don't need to follow a madhab, you wouldn't survive 5 seconds with such a person having a discussion. Because these people were absolutely amazing. I think it was Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi. His mother dressed him up like a little alim, the little turban, when he was 5 or 6. And she said, go to the... was it Imam Shafi? I think it was Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. Because his mother's name was Hazrat Aliyah rahmatullah alayha, and she dressed him up. He was already hafiz. She dressed him up. It's 5, 6, and she said, go to Medina Mosque and find a teacher. And he says, which teacher shall I find? Which one? Because there were many teachers sitting with their students, and she said, find the one with the best manners, not the greatest knowledge, not the loudest voice. Find one with the best manners. Look at that advice. And Imam Shafi rahmatullah used to say, I always remember my mother's advice. I still remember it now. We can't imagine, but a little kid walks into the Medina Sharif Mosque, looks around, and you can imagine some teachers might be a bit loud, some might, some might be a little bit abrupt, some might be a little bit too quiet, some might have bad habits and fidgeting. I don't know, I'm not saying that, but imagine he looked around, and this young, innocent, fresh mind, he looks at a teacher, goes, you know what, he's got the nicest manners, and I'm going to sit with him and learn. MashaAllah. And this is their upbringing. So when you say, why do you have to follow a madhab? Have you read all the hadith and Quranic verses on this subject? On prayer, yes or no? I already know the answer. Alright? It's no. Okay? So, you got 2 options. One, study for the next 20 years before you start praying properly. Or go to someone who's done all this and can summarize it for you. If you follow this logic through, there should be no schools and no universities. Because that's what people do, they teach. You don't think, right, I'm going to become a heart surgeon. I know, I'm going to read a book. Yeah, good luck with that. Nobody's going to come near you, trust me. Right? If someone says, I'm a heart surgeon, I know exactly what's wrong with you. Don't worry, I've read a book. Yeah, thank you so much. You're not going to touch me with anything, just keep away from me. You're going to get the exclusion order 10 miles away from me. Right? Let's do something more simple, learning how to drive. Right? Yeah, some people can drive without an instructor, alright, I'm sure. But you're going to have to eventually take a test or get some guidance or ask a question. You're going to have to. Alright? How to go around a roundabout is one of the famous questions, right? How about reversing and 3-point turning? And you have to get some information, and you'll get it from somewhere. And most people sit down with the instructor for a few lessons. You're not going to be able to drive just by reading a book. You're going to have to watch somebody drive at least. Okay? And that's what madhab's all about. It's a teacher. It's a summary. Okay? So what's the Qur'an? Allah says, what does the Qur'an say? فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Follow the people of dhikr. In other words, there are people you should ask questions to. We've just had this verse. Allah also says, if you have an issue, if only you had referred it to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, وَرَدُّوهُ إِلَى الرَّسُولِ وَإِلَى أُولِي الْأَمْرِ مِنْهُمْ, or those with authority over them, لَعَلِمَهُ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَنْبِطُونَهُ مِنْهُمْ. In other words, those who are the scholars, those who have investigated. So Allah Himself is saying, these are the people you need to refer to. The researchers, the scholars, the ones who study. And Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ati'u Allah wa ati'u Rasul wa ulil amri minkum. O you who believe, obey Allah, obey His Messenger, and obey those who have authority over you. So in other words, you can use this for scholars, you can use it for peers, you can use it for shaykh, you can also use it for madhab. A madhab is a convenient summary of how you have to live your life, without having to delve through the thousands of ahadith you might have to go through, and to understand why there are certain contradictions in some sayings, in some what seemingly Quranic verses and hadiths. There aren't contradictions, but you have to understand them. We can't do that without understanding the science. So these people have done that, and these people have enormous logic, enormous knowledge, enormous experience, and enormous blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet himself said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, again Tirmidhi and Imam Ahmad, he said, follow those two who are after me, Abu Bakr wa Umar. Hazrat Abu Bakr radiyallahu anhu, Hazrat Umar radiyallahu ta'ala. Follow these people after me. So he himself is saying, these are the people you have to follow. He doesn't say just follow Allah. He says, following these people, you're following Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people of Medina asked Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala the ruling of a woman who makes her first tawaf of the Kaaba, and then she starts her cycle, and then what can she do then in that condition? Hazrat Ibn Abbas said radiyallahu ta'ala, she may go home without completing her final tawaf. The people of Medina Sharif said, we won't follow what you've said and abandon the verdict of Hazrat Zayd, because Hazrat Zayd said something different to us. And in other words, we're taking his ruling. So it shows you, number one, there are slight differences of opinion, and number two, people had adopted a shaykh, a guide, a leader, a scholar. And Hazrat Ibn Abbas radiyallahu, he didn't say, no, you have to follow me. He says, fine, go and ask him when you go and see him next. Go and ask him. And this is in Bukhari. So they asked the scholars, and they took the advice of the scholars. They don't say, show me your evidence. Where is this in Bukhari? Okay, well, show me evidence. Let's sit down, let's talk for 3 hours about the evidence. No, we trust you. You're a guide. Yeah, thank you. Hazrat Aswad bin Yazid radiyallahu, he narrates, Hazrat Mu'adh came to us in Yemen radiyallahu ta'ala an, as a teacher and as a leader. So he came as a teacher, mu'alliman wa amiran, a teacher and a leader. So they followed his teachings. And this is one of the questions again they asked about a man who has passed away and left a daughter and a sister and this is on mirath, on inheritance, and he gave a ruling, half the estate for the daughter and half for the sister. Okay? Half for the daughter and half for the sister. They didn't ask him to explain or justify or prove or show evidence. They said, yes, we accept it. They just accepted it. And that's one of the rulings of mirath. When a person dies and all he leaves behind is a daughter and sister, how do you split the estate? Because there's no, number one, there's no men. Number two, there's no spouse. Number three, there's no parents. Okay, number four, there's no brothers. So how do you split the estate? And he said straight away, because he knew, split half 50-50. No one criticized him. No one demanded evidence. No one said, no, we're going to follow Qur'an and sunnah. We're going to follow Allah. No, we followed him. Again, Bukhari. Again, we're talking about inheritance. And you can read this in your own time. And they asked Hazrat Ibn Masud radiyallahu about a verdict. And then we came to Imam Hazrat Abu Musa radiyallahu ta'ala. And then they said, Ibn Masud said this about the inheritance. And what did Ibn Masud say radiyallahu ta'ala? He goes, listen, this man's learned, follow him. Why are you asking me? This is Bukhari. So we follow learned people, and we don't say, oh, we can only go to Allah. Yeah, we've gone to Allah. Allah sent these people with blessing, with guidance, with knowledge. How lucky we are to have this. Allah could have said, right, here's a Qur'an, here's a hadith, struggle with it on your own. You'll end up with 1 billion different madhabs, right? And most of them will be wrong. I mean, if anybody asked you, before you read this hadith, someone's died, left behind a sister and a daughter, what would you have said? Yeah, that's a natural thing. You'd say most will go to the daughter, but that would be a guess, isn't it? But I mean, these people have knowledge. And then now we have something even more complicated. You have a daughter, you have a son's daughter, you see, and you have a sister. So your daughter, a son's daughter, and a sister. And this is not a complicated one. Right? In fact, there's one case. If you distribute all the shares, you get a little bit left. There's one case, if you distribute it in accordance with Qur'an, okay, give all the shares, there's actually a little bit left. So Hazrat Umar gave a ruling on that. And it's called the ruling of Umar Rayyatan. It's his ruling. So he clarified that. Nobody's questioning him. Nobody's saying he's wrong. Which is actually an interesting one. And if you know maths, it's called normalizing. It's actually very interesting. You have to know maths to understand mirath. So Umar radiyallahu anhu, he was a master of maths. And the ulama have to be master of maths. So you get this wrong, you need to know your fractions. Right? Like if I said to you, what's half of a quarter? How many of you would know? No. MashaAllah, very good. It's correct. I'm not saying it's wrong, MashaAllah. So the Prophet ﷺ, he sent so many companions around the world, okay, to different communities. And Abu Bakr, he did this, Hazrat Umar, he did the same. So they became their leaders of fiqh and tafsir and hadith and like this. But ultimately, what Allah Azza wa Jal has done, He's allowed the rulings of 4 great Imams to become famous and accepted. And these are Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, and Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhim. He's allowed these 4 to become prevalent and to become famous. And each of these Imams respected each other completely. In fact, Hazrat Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi used to sometimes sit by the grave of Hazrat Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, and said, when I had a problem, I used to go and sit there. That's how much love they had for each other. And their rulings were so practical and yet completely in accordance with Qur'an and hadith. And they weren't just experts in this, they're experts in all sorts of things. Imam Shafi, let me tell you a ruling about Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi. He's very strict on namaz, on prayer. He says, okay, if you start praying when you're 25, you should start praying from puberty. But okay, if you start praying when you're 25, you have to make all the prayers up which you've missed. Okay. Now, in fact, I met somebody once, and we were reading Maghrib, so we read our Maghrib. Then this guy read 3 more. I said, didn't you agree with the Imam? He goes, no, I'm Shafi. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, I started praying when I was 18, got to make up 4 years of prayers. So what I'm doing, every time I pray one prayer, I repeat it for my qaza. I said, wow, mashallah. That's how strict Imam Shafi is. Right? So anyway, someone came to Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi and said, I've been reading Fajr at the wrong time for the last 10 years. I don't know exactly how long, but say 10 years. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, I've been waking up before dawn and I've read my Fajr. Now I've got to make up 10 years of namaz, according to Shafi ruling. And Imam Shafi rahmatullah, who's so strict, he goes, no, you just have to read one qaza Fajr and you'll make up for 10 years. Do you know the story? Do you know the reasoning? The reasoning is very simple. He said, when you woke up the first time at the wrong time, that was nafil. When you woke up the next day at the wrong time, that was qaza for the day before. When you woke up this morning, it was qaza for the day before. You just owe Allah one. And thank goodness for Imam Shafi rahmatullah. There was a marriage dispute. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah, husband came to him in great distress, right? And he goes, please help me, I've got a huge problem at home. So, you see, they were guides as well. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah didn't say, don't come and see me, go and ask Allah, I've got no interest in you. Never said that, right? He said, what's the problem? He goes, problem is my wife and I are not speaking to each other. He goes, that's not a problem. Why is that a problem? He goes, well, you don't understand. We had a huge argument and I said to her, I'm never going to speak to you now, ever. Wallahi, I swear by Allah, until you speak to me. And obviously in an argument, she says, well, I'm not taking that. So she said, well, I'm going to swear the same. I'm going to swear I'm never going to speak to you until you speak to me. And they both stopped speaking. I suppose one way of ending an argument, isn't it, if you make that. So both quiet. Obviously, how long can you keep a temper? I know some people keep for generations, but anyway, how long can you keep a temper for? Not long, to be honest. You've got to end up being practical, isn't it? So he's thinking, I'm stuck now. We've found ourselves in a corner and we're completely stuck without breaking our promise. So he thought, man, I might have to give kafara, I might have to sacrifice a goat or a sheep or something, you know. So he came to Abu Hanifa in a panic, rahmatullah alayhi. He goes, what do I do? And Imam Abu Hanifa said, very simple, go back and say salam to your wife. And he goes, no, but I've promised, I've made an oath, I swore, and my niyyah was this. And Imam Abu Hanifa let him finish, okay. I said, go back and say salam to your wife, because you're not going to break a promise. He goes, how? He goes, well, what was your promise? What was your oath? Your oath was you'll never speak to her until she speaks to you, isn't it? What happened then? Then she spoke to you, isn't it? Didn't she speak to you to make the oath? So go and say salam. Then she's fulfilled her oath, you fulfilled yours. He goes, that's the point. We didn't say that, but that's just my interpretation. But so Allah's allowed these four to flourish, okay? And if you think about it, there's not much difference between them. There's very little difference, but each one's based on the rulings of Qur'an and Sunnah. Each one's based. I'll give you just one final example. You know, why people differ about, you know, Rafadain, for example. You know, before you go for ruku, some people put their hands up, and in Shafi you have this, in Maliki you have this, in I think Hanbali you have, but in Hanafi you don't have this. People say which one's right. Well, if I explain to you the reasoning, you'll realize why they're both right. The reasoning is this, because Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah said, look, the last way the Prophet prayed and the way he taught was without rafadain. It was takbir tahrima wahida, it was just one takbir, and that was it throughout the prayer. And the other Imams say, yeah, but the majority of the time he did rafadain. So surely that should overrule, although they're both correct, they're both saying they're both correct, this is preferable. So that's why you have a difference in understanding and ruling. They're both correct, we can't say one's wrong. But the beauty of this difference of opinion is this. Now in prayer it's not really that important in terms of the rahmah of differences of opinion, but in other things it becomes very important, right? So for example, Hajj. In Hanafi ruling you have to have a mahram, the woman has to have a mahram. In Shafi, a group of women can become the mahram. So if a Hanafi sister can't go for Hajj, although she has the means and she has to go, and she'll never have a mahram, the scholars will say to her, fine, you know what, you can take Imam Shafi's ruling because it's a majburi. That's a rahmah of this difference of opinion. Or you live by the coast and Imam Abu Hanifa says rahmatullah, you can't have anything to eat from the sea other than fish, and for a month the fish you may not be able to catch any fish. What do? You can't starve to death. And yeah, you can use the argument, yeah, but you can eat anything then. You can use that argument, right, fine. But why not use Imam Shafi or Hanbali, Maliki? Anything from the sea is halal. So there are practical benefits of this difference of opinion. And the beauty is you don't have to argue over hadith or Qur'an. You just accept. What you mustn't do is for convenience, you know what, it's Maghrib time, but I think I'll delay it because Imam so-and-so says I can delay it a bit, and then just carry on watching a program. You shouldn't do it like that. Because there are some differences, but we shouldn't make these differences so large. They're all correct. Follow one for convenience. Even if you find a hadith that seems to say something else, because you haven't looked at all the hadiths, so you can't say, oh, we must follow that one. I was watching a guy praying. I said, where have you learned this prayer from? His hands are all over the place, his finger was up here, all this, that, everything. Oh, where'd you learn this from? He goes, I've read it from hadith. I said, which hadith he read it from? He goes, it wasn't one. I said, that's the problem. You've read a hadith, you put together your own prayer. You're taking this from that, and I've never seen this before. He was all over the place. And he's confident, I'm following the sunnah. No, you're not. What sunnah are you following? Tawbah. I've never seen some of the stuff he's done. I'm sure he found it. One of the things is like this, you pray. This is a prophet, he did pray like this, yes, but it's to make it sunnah for women. That's why he put his hands ala sadr, on his chest, to make it sunnah for women. But for men, he put his hands like this. So he's coming along, he's like, I know exactly how to pray. He's putting like that. You're praying like a woman. Where's your modesty? Your modesty is here. A woman's modesty is here. You see, this is why you have the scholars of hadith. They say, no, this is for women. This is for men. Because he's made it sunnah for women. Tawbah. Any questions?
As I was told once, that you can't, this concept of mixing and matching. So, in one madhab, when you make wudu, you have to include your elbows, in one you don't. But if you can't make wudu with one, follow the rules of one madhab, and then pray.
Yeah, that's right. In terms of wudu, they shouldn't mix and match. But in terms of wudu, there are some subtle differences. I don't think there's a difference of including the elbow. There is that discussion. The difference is masa. Imam Abu Hanifa says certain part of the head, and another scholar says a quarter. There are some differences.
Right.
Okay, but and that's why you should follow one,
right,
and stick to it. Unless there's a real majburi. And in wudu there's going to be no majburi, is there? But just beware of people taking matters one step further, they might say the Prophet, for example, he said, wear leather socks and you can keep your wudu for the whole day.
Yeah.
Then some people say, well, any sock will do. No, he said leather socks. So you can't change that. Or socks which have the same properties as leather, i.e., they're they're not porous. Yeah, they're waterproof. Yeah.
Are you saying then that there's actually, because we only know of 4 madhabs, there are actually more madhabs than 4?
There's 4 main ones, but other people have tried to make others. But Allah Azza wa Jalla has just blessed these 4. The Salafis follow their own. Well, they follow hundreds of their own, and the Shias follow their own. And that's why there's so many groups in the Salafis, and there's so many groups in the Shias.
So there's 4 that we know of, the Sunni.
There's 4, the vast majority, I reckon 85% of Muslims will follow these 4. Yeah, in Asia, Hanafi he rules most of Asia, but North Africa, I think it's Maliki, and then there's Shafi in the Far East, like Malaysia, etc. And the Middle East is a bit of a mess. There's a mixture of Hanafis and Shafis. And I mean, they say Shafi is very strict, very literal. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, actually he looks at the reasoning. The Prophet said this for a reason. In fact, there was one occasion the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he actually said to a group of people, don't read Asr until you arrive in Banu Qurayza, which is the tribe of Qurayza. So the group travelled, and Asr time came, and there was disagreement. One group said, Asr time, if we don't read until we get there, we might miss Asr, so let's read it now. The other group said, no, we've been instructed to go there and read Asr. And the first group said, no, the Prophet ﷺ wanted us to get there for Asr, that's why he said that. And the other group said, no, but he said don't read Asr until you get here. So one was going on the literal, the other was going on the intention. Luckily the Prophet is alive, ﷺ, to ask him. So they did all this, they split. They did all this, and they both went back to the Prophet ﷺ, and they asked him who was right. Guess what his answer was? Both
Really?
are correct. You both followed me. One thought of my intention, the other literally. Now you see, how many books would you have to read through to get that hadith, Most hadith books aren't even in English yet. Most hadith books are not in English.
It's Arabic only.
They are in Arabic and Urdu now. Bayhaqi is not in English. Imam Ahmad's Musnad is not in English. Imam Ibn Shaybah is not in English. These are major collections. Bayhaqi's actually got several collections, not just Imam Suyuti's books. These collections aren't in English. All we've got is these 6: Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Nisa'i, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. And people think, oh, there we go, we got these 6. Imam Darimi is not in English. Imam Daraqutni is not in English. There's so many not in English. I've got a whole list of these books in the back of this.
So in the same way that you've got the copies of the Qur'an that are translated, and some the meaning's lost in translation, when you've translated those 6 hadith books into English, have you got the same problem?
Yeah, you have. Some of the translations are wrong. Yeah. I've had to check the translations in this.
So how do you know who to trust then in terms of which translation?
Well, sometimes they translate, for example, wali, they might translate as friend, and you think, okay, friend, and actually it's a lot more powerful than friend.
Right.
Or they might try, and people will say to you, well, where's the word wali or murshad, or where is it in here? And all you can see is the English, and it's here. Yeah, like where's the word ulama? It's clearly here. Inna al-ulama warathatul anbiya. So you must have the Arabic, and you must be familiar with the Arabic. And the same is true for Qur'an. Now, I was talking about birthday to somebody. They said birthday isn't in the Holy Quran. I said it is. They said no, it isn't. I said it is. وَسَلَامٌ عَلَيْهِ يوم ولد ويوم يموت ويوم يبعث حيا. Surah Maryam. Peace be on him, the day he was born. Okay, that's the day of birth. يوم ولد, the day of birth. That's a birthday. The day of birth is it? And they said, no, it isn't. I said, a day of birth is a birthday. A day of death is death day. Day of resurrection is resurrection day. Allah's, in Arabic, it's slightly different. You change your words around. The day of birth, that's your birth day. The problem is we've made birthday as something else, but a birthday is your birth day. Like breakfast, you're breaking your fast for the night. Break fast. Goodbyes, God be with you. So we've just changed the understanding of the words in our minds. But in fact, birthday is your day of birth. In order to do it, it's something different. Salgira. And Salgira, you know, is birthday, but actually Salgira is the day you drop a year.
True. Oh my goodness.
You see, but we've forgotten the original, the roots. So let's talking about birthday, day of birth, and people say, oh, you can't find Milad al-Nabi Sallam in hadith. You can't find that. You find it's in Tirmidhi Sharif. There's a whole chapter called Milad al-Nabi Sallam, and that's what it says, Milad al-Nabi. But you won't find it translated as, you know, Milad al-Nabi. You'll find it's translated as something else. I put it on my Facebook once. I said, look, here you go, look. How do we start that discussion? Okay, I think that's enough, yeah? Okay, no questions? Fantastic, it's been 1 hour 20 minutes, is enough, yeah? Okay, wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.